In the annals of American true crime, few names evoke as much terror, disbelief, and psychological fascination as Jeffrey Dahmer. Known as the Milwaukee Cannibal, Dahmer's gruesome crimes are infamous. But beneath the horror lies a twisted and chilling tale of neglect, obsession, and psychological collapse that spanned over a decade. This is not just a recounting of murders. This is a journey into the disturbed mind of a man whose darkness devoured 17 lives. Stick around, because just when you think it can't get more disturbing, it does, and it reveals a justice system that missed every warning sign. The early years. Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer was born on May 21, 1960, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, to Lionel and Joyce Dahmer. From the outside, his early childhood appeared relatively normal. But inside the household, there were cracks. Joyce struggled with severe mental health issues, while Lionel's work often took him away from home. Young Jeffrey was left isolated, a child growing up in the shadows of emotional chaos. From an early age, Dahmer developed an unusual fascination with dead animals. He collected roadkill and dissected them in the woods behind his home. While most boys his age were riding bikes or playing ball, Jeffrey was bleaching animal bones and cataloging them with chilling precision. His father, a chemist, initially encouraged the interest in biology, not realizing it was evolving into something dark. By high school, Dahmer had become an outcast. He began drinking heavily, even sneaking alcohol into class. His behavior turned increasingly erratic. Yet, no one, not teachers, not family, not peers, ever intervened. What happens when early warning signs are ignored? When a boy with disturbing tendencies grows into a man unchecked by family or society, the consequences are chilling and fatal. The first murder. In 1978, just 3 weeks after graduating from high school, Dahmer committed his first murder. He picked up a hitchhiker named Stephen Hicks and brought him back to his parents' house. After several drinks and failed sexual advances, Dahmer bludgeoned Hicks with a dumbbell and strangled him. He dismembered the body, crushed the bones, and scattered them in the backyard. His parents were unaware that a killer had just been born under their roof. Dahmer briefly attended Ohio State University, but flunked out due to alcoholism. He then enlisted in the U.S. Army, but his drinking got him discharged after 2 years. He drifted, moving in with his grandmother in West Allis, Wisconsin. It was here that his sexual urges began to intertwine more strongly with violence. He committed indecent exposure and molestation, leading to minor legal trouble. Still, no psychological evaluation was ordered, and no one dug deeper. The legal system had him in its hands more than once. Could he have been stopped? Could 17 lives have been saved if someone had just asked the right questions at the right time? The killing spree begins. Between 1987 and 1991, Dahmer spiraled into a killing frenzy. He lured young men, many of them gay men of color, back to his apartment with promises of money or photographs. There, he drugged them, strangled them, and performed grotesque acts on their corpses. His obsession escalated. He kept body parts, took Polaroid photos, and preserved skulls and genitalia as trophies. His apartment became a house of horrors. Neighbors complained about strange smells and odd noises, but complaints were largely dismissed. In one tragic instance, police actually returned a 14-year-old boy, Conorak Synthesumphone, drugged, injured, and naked, back to Dahmer, believing it was a lover's quarrel. The boy was murdered within the hour. What would you do if the police handed your child back to a killer? What if the warning signs were dismissed, not just once, but again and again? Inside the mind of a monster. Psychologists later diagnosed Dahmer with borderline personality disorder, schizotypal disorder, and necrophilia. Yet he was found legally sane during his trial. His confessions were eerily calm, almost clinical. He said he killed to prevent his victims from leaving him, to keep them near, to possess them entirely. He attempted to create what he called zombies by drilling holes into victims' skulls and injecting acid, hoping they'd remain alive but obedient. His acts weren't just evil. They were calculated, ritualistic, and driven by deep psychological fractures. Dahmer's crimes were not just about killing. They were about control, identity, and self-hatred. As a gay man raised in a conservative household, he felt immense shame. He couldn't reconcile desire with morality, leading to a horrifying internal war with tragic collateral damage. What turns a person into a monster? Is it nurture? Is it nature? Or is it the silent, deadly intersection of both? The capture and trial. On July 22, 1991, Tracy Edwards managed to escape Dahmer's apartment, handcuffed and terrified. He flagged down police and led them back. What they found inside was beyond belief. Photographs of dismembered bodies, severed heads in the fridge, and human remains scattered like macabre decor. The trial began in 1992. Dahmer pleaded guilty but insane to 15 counts of murder. The jury disagreed. He was deemed legally sane and sentenced to 15 consecutive life terms, totaling 957 years. He expressed remorse, even asking for the death penalty. But Wisconsin had abolished it. Instead, he was imprisoned in Columbia Correctional Institution, where he reportedly found religion and began reading the Bible. In 1994, just 2 years into his sentence, he was murdered by a fellow inmate, Christopher Scarver. The reactions of the public to Jeffrey Dalmar's story have been intense, ranging from admiration to outrage. Some see him as a hero, a figure who is willing to challenge the status quo, while others view him as a menace, a threat to public safety. The debate surrounding his actions has sparked a heated discussion about justice and morality, with no clear consensus in sight. The resolutions or ongoing efforts related to Jeffrey Dalmar's identity are complex and multifaceted, with numerous investigations and trials taking place over the years. His ability to evade capture has been a source of frustration for law enforcement, leading to a cat-and-mouse game that shows no signs of ending. The truth, as always, remains elusive, but one thing is certain: Jeffrey Dalmar's story has left an indelible mark on our collective consciousness. The impact of Jeffrey Dalmar's story on society is undeniable, sparking a heated debate about justice and morality. His ability to operate in the shadows, always staying one step ahead of the law, raises important questions about the effectiveness of our justice system. As we consider the implications of his actions, we must also examine our own perceptions of justice and morality. The story of Jeffrey Dalmar serves as a reminder that the truth is often complex and multifaceted, rarely fitting into neat categories of right or wrong. His mysterious nature has sparked a heated debate about his true identity and motivations, with no clear consensus in sight. As we reflect on his story, we are forced to confront our own biases and assumptions, challenging us to think more critically about the world around us. The importance of understanding complex figures like Jeffrey Dalmar cannot be overstated, as it allows us to gain insight into the human condition. His story serves as a reminder that people are often more than they seem, with motivations and desires that may not be immediately apparent. By exploring the complexities of his character, we can gain a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us. In conclusion, we look back on Jeffrey Dahmer not just because of what he did, but because of what his story revealed. It's easy to label him a monster, to put distance between ourselves and what he became. But that distance, however comforting, is deceptive. Dahmer didn't crawl out of some shadowy abyss. He grew up in the same world as the rest of us. In the suburbs, at school, around dinner tables. His face could have been on a yearbook page or standing behind you at a bus stop. What frightens us most is not that evil exists. It's that it can wear a smile, hold a steady job, live in the apartment across the hall. The question lingers, not just how did he do it, but how did he get away with it for so long? The warning signs were there. Cries for help, missed chances, authorities who looked the other way, families who were never given answers until it was too late. Dahmer's story forces us to confront failures of the justice system, of mental health support, of a society that didn't listen when it mattered most. And then there are the victims. 17 young men, some with names never properly remembered, sons, brothers, friends. Each one had a life of their own, dreams, fears, laughter, love. They deserve more than to be footnotes in the shadow of a killer. We remember Jeffrey Dahmer because his crimes tore open the illusion of safety. But we must remember his victims because their stories were cut short. Because behind every headline was a human being whose story was never finished. In the end, we don't tell this story to glorify him. We tell it so we never stop asking the hard questions. So we never look the other way again. So the silence, next time, doesn't last so long. And maybe, just maybe, so we learn to recognize the danger before it takes root in our own backyard. Conclusion: the story of Jeffrey Dahmer didn't end with his death in prison. If anything, the real questions only began there. Why didn't anyone stop him sooner? Over the years, multiple red flags had been raised. His history of indecent exposure, his conviction for sexual assault, and the countless times neighbors reported odd smells and screams coming from his apartment. Even more disturbing was the 1991 incident involving Konorak Synthesumphone, a 14-year-old boy who escaped but was tragically returned to Dahmer's custody by Milwaukee police. Despite clear signs something was wrong, the officers failed to follow up. That decision cost a life. Dahmer's case exposed deep systemic failures within law enforcement, mental health evaluation, and how society responds to marginalized communities. Many of Dahmer's victims were young men of color, Black, Latino, and Asian. Their disappearances often didn't spark urgency or attention. Families who reported them missing were dismissed, ignored, or not taken seriously. In interviews, Dahmer himself didn't deny his crimes. He described himself as emotionally detached and said his actions were never driven by hatred, rather, by a compulsive need to possess and control. He claimed he killed not for pleasure, but to keep his victims from leaving him. His necrophilia and cannibalism were extensions of that twisted need. Experts have long debated his mental state. Some argued he suffered from borderline personality disorder or schizotypal tendencies. Others said he was fully aware and simply evil. The court ultimately found him legally sane and criminally responsible. And then there's the public's reaction: books, documentaries, even fan letters sent to him in prison. His case blurred the line between criminal and celebrity in disturbing ways. It forced us to examine our fascination with serial killers and how easily horror can become entertainment. But make no mistake, Jeffrey Dahmer was not a misunderstood genius. He was a predator, calculated, persistent, and he used society's blind spots to get away with murder again and again. Final thought: in the end, this isn't just the story of a man who killed. It's the story of how he got away with it for so long. It's about the lives lost, 17 young men with names, dreams, families. And it's about the chilling reminder that the most terrifying monsters are not always hiding in the shadows. Sometimes they're living next door. If this story moved you, if it raised questions you still can't shake, you're not alone. And that's the reason we tell these stories. Not to glorify evil, but to remember the victims, to understand the warning signs, and to demand accountability when it matters most. Thanks for watching. For more deep explorations into true crime and historical cases that still echo today, consider subscribing to CyberTheo. We tell these stories not to glorify the monster, but to remember the victims, to examine the cracks in the system, and to ask the uncomfortable question: could it happen again? Check my links below. Don't forget to like, comment, and consider subscribing for more. Stay safe and stay aware.